Okay, let's open the meeting then and welcome everybody to the Community Matters meeting today. I'm Vice Chair for this. Paul is actually away this week, for this week actually. So Wendy's going to keep me on the straight and narrow, make sure I'm doing everything correctly anyway. So yeah, thank you Wendy and thank you everybody for attending. That was agenda point 1, so now on to agenda point 2, so apologies for the absence apart from Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I haven't actually had any other direct apologies, unless there's any from the floor, please.
No. But where are 2 of them then?
Yeah.
Sorry, Carol Preston is in the USA.
Yeah.
So she sent her apologies.
Thank you.
Mr. Cartwright? Let you know, isn't it?
Not had anything from Bob.
Okey-dokey. Okay, so on to agenda point number 3, declaration of councillors' interests and requests for dispensations. Should we start with going around the floor first?
None that I'm aware of.
Only 2 updates. Well, one main update is the Wheels and Skate Park Office update, because I am the chair and not just interested, but peculiarly interested, even though it's an update, just for kind of clarification. Otherwise, that's it that I'm aware of.
None that I'm aware of.
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, so I have pecuniary interest to declare, and that will be regarding item 7, so the youth centre, the continuation of the breakfast club. Myself and John, we've been appointed trustees to the youth centre, so that's just something that we need to declare, make sure that that is on record.
Just a question for you,
Yep.
Emma, on that one. The youth centre continuation of breakfast club, have we had the information we asked for at the grants working group last week? I don't believe we have.
No, we've not seen any additional information that we've requested yet.
Obviously, you're leading it, but therefore this needs to come off the agenda then, because if, as per the grants working group last week, this can't now be on the agenda because we haven't got the information we asked for.
Can I just clarify with Laura?
Yeah.
I received it. I emailed it out to the cost of the
I've not seen it.
Definitely went out.
To be fair, it's been a bit crazy for me this week.
Yeah, so there was an amended, Kim came back with an amended, so following the working party discussions, Kim then came back with an amended bid that included the information that you wanted on that.
Okay. I don't know, because I've missed that as well then.
I've missed that too.
I've got it.
I thought we sent.
Yeah, I probably have received it and not realised that's what it is. There were quite a few. There's quite a few came in this week.
Yeah, there's been quite a few, but okay. Sorry,
when
Laura,
we get to the item, we'll
grab what we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Thank you, Ben. Okay. Agenda item number 4, so it's the update report on the Wheels and Skate Park and also on the play parks at the lake grounds. And Ben, I think you were going to give us a verbal update on that.
So I suppose the first thing, unless you've been living on Mars, the skate park opened on the 15th of May, which was kind of a momentous occasion for many reasons. One, that we've fought for this thing for so darn long. That's been a hilarious post on social media today, which has gone viral. But you know, there's a lot of people. You know, 100+ people turned up at the event. BBC Radio Bristol were there. Martin was absolutely amazing. If you've not heard it yet, listen to it on BBC Sounds. I'm on there, embarrassing myself. Martin Evans, I believe it is, from memory. So the kids. The young kids, the medium-aged kids, the youth of this town, the young adults, the older adults, absolutely amazing. I mean, can we have done and delivered a better skate park than we ever dreamt of? No. Are they all loving it? Yes. Are there some things to learn from? Yes. But we're dealing with a few of the things behind the scenes. Nothing major, just little bits of kind of landscaping and stuff like that, but absolutely rip-roaring success. It could not have gone any better every single day. And I've been down there at 7:15 one morning, checking it as I go past to work. I'm sad. And there's still people on it. It's like, do you actually go home? But no, the feedback we've had is just literally truly amazing. There has been some other feedback kind of around, the whole kind of etiquette thing. But again, we have only been open 2 weeks on Saturday. It's a learning curve for all of us, and particularly the new skaters. We all get on together, and I've not seen anybody that's had an issue. So if someone needs to just, explain something to somebody, they've explained something to somebody. I had a message tonight that they've actually taught the lad to go in the bowl. 4 attempts, he's in the bowl and whizzing around quite happily. That's what it's about. It's about the smiles on people's faces. So we've achieved, quite frankly, what we set out to do, and Lisa Stanley and co set out to do all these years ago. We've achieved this as a group, not me, not Janet, not Lisa Stanley, all of us together. Every one of us has contributed towards this, so every one of us should give a massive pat on our backs. Should be incredibly proud of ourselves for what we've delivered. It's absolutely freaking amazing. So thank you everybody that's kind of in the community that's contributed, whether you're a resident, a business, National Lottery, National Grid, Viola, Sport England, British Cycling, you name it. These guys made this thing happen. Town Council, massive support for them, because without their support we've had from Wendy and the team behind Wendy and North Somerset Council, we couldn't have achieved this. Politics was slammed firmly shut on the door of this skate park, and we actually put the people at Portishead first, which is why we delivered this thing. Politics has got nothing to do with this. This is about delivering what people of this town asked for, and we've delivered it. So whoever you are, I can't name all of you. I could be here all night and you'll get very bored. I apologise. But actually, everyone should be proud. Jeff's here tonight, previous chairman. Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciated the work we kind of worked together, etc. I wish you were there at the end with us. You were on Saturday. On Saturday, 2 weeks on Saturday, whatever it was. I have been there once at least. So yeah, thank you. It's been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, thank you all. That's it on the skate park. Oh, apart from one thing, if you are bored tomorrow morning and skateboard or scooter or bike, about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, National Grid are coming down for a photo shoot. There'll be a cheque presentation. They've donated £17,000 towards the project. So if you are available, please come down, as many people as possible. I'm diving out of the show field for an hour, told Nikki. And I ran quickly.
Well done.
So, bless her, no, she's fine. So yeah, but if you can come down for an hour tomorrow morning, photo shoot for National Grid, they'll be there asking some questions. I don't want it just to be me, I don't want to be on the front pages of this stuff. I'm not interested. I'm interested in making sure this is delivered, which we've done. That's all I care about. So if you want to be spoken to by National Grid and your photo taken, please come down tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Otherwise, that's it for skate park. Anybody got any questions? Thank you.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
As I understand, it's sort of an Olympic standard one.
Yeah.
Is it being designed to add on? I mean, could you in the future, clearly it's a successful project, could you add on to it by...
It hasn't been designed to add on, but could we add on? Yes, we could. Because the way it's been designed, it isn't built into the ground per se. It's sat into the ground slightly, but it's a floating raft effectively. Yeah. So when the ground moves, it moves with it. Not that you'd know it, obviously. So could we add on to it? Yes, we could. Do we have plans to add on to it? I don't know. Let's see what happens. But this skate park is very bespoke to Portishead. It's not been built anywhere. We've got differences we've got compared to other ones is very different, which is why it was designed, because it caters for all categories of ability, from complete newbies all the way up to the experts, and actually that's why they're loving it. So to answer your question, yes, we could add onto it if we needed to. It is possible. We just haven't thought about it.
It was also designed to accommodate people in wheelchairs.
Yeah, it's fully disabled accessible, so it's a fully accessible skate park. Anybody can get on, apart from the bowl, obviously, for obvious reasons, but there's not a lot we can do about that, unfortunately. Yeah. But it meets the kind of relevant requirements for an accessible skate park, and level footpaths in and everything. So yeah, they can, wheelchair users or whatever can use it. So that's why it was designed as well. There was that, and that was one of the key criteria that we stipulated at the start. It has to be accessible to all ages, all abilities. Etc. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's also at the moment looks lovely and it's pristine concrete. But will the inevitable happen? Will people start graffitiing it? If it happens, what's the procedure?
The procedure is they do not touch it. They call the town council or call me. We will deal with it. there was a chemical that we need to use and put on it immediately. It wouldn't require the skate park being shut temporarily, not for long, but we'll have to shut it, clean it, just pull this chemical onto it. It will then pull it out the concrete surface itself and just jet it off. But you cannot use a jet wash on it ever, ever. And we cannot scrub it, because the minute you scrub it or jet wash it, you kill the surface. So there is a chemical that we can get, which just literally just pulls it out the pores of the concrete and just wash it off, and it doesn't harm the environment.
It's 30-year warranty, isn't it, on the concrete?
You're sorry?
Is it a 30-year warranty?
Oh, something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's a crazy amount of warranty. So yeah.
It's not your standard concrete.
No, it's the effect of the concrete that's used. They use it on bridges and roads. It's that strong. So yeah, good luck at breaking it. But if it does happen that someone decides to try and graffiti it, then we will deal with it.
Do you have to reseal it afterwards?
No. As long as nobody's tried to do anything beforehand, we can deal with it.
Okay.
If they do, then we'll have to go down a different route. But just to be clear, for anyone not in the room or listening to this or going to listen to this afterwards, there is CCTV which is 24/7 monitored. So Big Brother is watching you. We will find out who you are, and the police will come knocking on your door. And I will make sure of it, because I'm not having it. I'm not having this room for nobody. This is the kids. This is the people of this town. The police will deal with it if need to. That's why the CCTV is there, or one of the reasons. So yeah, let's just enjoy it and respect it.
Less than 3.5 years from our first meeting with the North Somerset Council.
Well, the first one was in 2018.
18, was it?
Yeah, 2018, October 2018. October 2018, we sat in this room with 2 town councillors and 1 officer from North Somerset, and we got told no. I said to Jeff at that point, okay, fine. And at that point, I was actually in Cardiff at Millennium Stadium, as it was called then. I was sat in a pub, a lovely shanty pub, going to watch Coldplay on a Thursday evening. I got an email from somebody saying, I hear you're going to wait and play the long game. Yeah, I am. It was very deliberate, because I knew it wasn't going to get through, and I got criticised for that, but I think I've been proven right, and the rest of the team have behind me as well, Jeff and co.
Yeah, the elections took place, didn't they?
Yeah,
And all
we
the
waited.
kicked out.
We bided our time, not knowing what's going to happen.
What date was the parish poll? Because that was in response
That would have
to.
been 2018, before the election.
Before the elections, it
Yes,
was
it was.
2018, it was June 2018, it was, the parish poll was.
Was it?
Yeah, June 2018.
Not long after the elections, when all the rumours got kicked out.
Well, because the election was
Not after that,
2019.
then we did the presentation at North Somerset Council for planning land applications.
Yeah, it was January the 7th, 2020.
Yeah.
Around about 11 AM, we got landlord's consent. I don't remember it that much, but you know. So yeah, but the new exec gave us the okay to go ahead with it. So yeah, and planning commission followed, and we got planning permission early June last year, and now we delivered it. So within 14 months, we've delivered £360,000 and a skate park.
Well done.
Hence why we should all be proud of each other. So yeah.
Well,
Absolutely. Thanks,
They
Ben.
did most of the work. I'll take it.
No, it's all of us. There's no I in team. We all work together. How big or little, we all contributed. So, yeah, thank you.
And on to the play parks.
So yeah, obviously Lake Grounds Play Park, as we know, has been upgraded, has been done. There are a few things that we need to refine. Some areas that kind of just need to be have some additional grass around it. We have put some matting down and bits and bobs, but we need to just do some additional work. It has been signed off by the relevant people. I'm not going to talk about it too much, and please nobody else, but there has been an incident. We are aware of the incident and we are dealing with it. It was unfortunate, but it was an incident, and we are responding to it accordingly. And we've spoken to the relevant people, and Sharon is dealing with it. So we're on the case. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that one.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right, no worries. Anybody else? Okay, yeah. So item number 5, this is our public participation relating to any of the meeting agenda. Not sure if anybody's got anything that they want to add.
I'd just like to say how much enjoyment there is watching everybody enjoying the skate park and the wheel park, and there's a lot of youngsters coming from Bristol they say it's like being on holiday. And they want to spend their money in the swimming pool, they want to spend their money in the cafe. So it's I didn't know if there was anything that could be done about the toilets being left usable, because I think it says shut after a certain time of the day. And I think if the youngsters and the oldsters are down there till dark, it's only fair that the toilets are available, because if
Can I
there's a
add to
distance.
that?
Yeah.
North Somerset are updating those toilets in 23, 24, I've been told. It is on their agenda.
But meanwhile, could they not be open so that we don't have those sort of issues?
I think the issue with it slightly is, and that's why some of the CCTV is there as well, I'm not going to talk about them because they don't deserve any oxygen, but it's the people that decide to ruin things.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. So the minute you open up a bit later, then certain people seem to think it's okay to vandalise things, which is not. We will have the conversation with North Somerset. We'll ask them. It's whether they're prepared to, because as you know, the Wyndham Way toilets, the town council toilets, you know, they're constantly shut because people think it's okay to vandalise things. It's not. It's taxpayers' money that we're wasting here because we have to fix it for the small minority.
Yeah.
So we will ask them. Yes, I take on your point. I think it's a valid point, very valid. But it's whether they're prepared to do it. I don't know.
And the other thing is the cafe there near the toilet, the concession person obviously owns it, closes it or whatever. But again, there's a business there to be had with all these people coming.
Yeah, I think
Because they're out of town people, several of them, and they're in their sort of mid-20s, 30s. They're coming over on their days off to enjoy it. They're coming over after work in the evening or after college in the evening, and they said, you know, sort of chatting, because we chat to them to ask them where they come from and what they think of it. And they said, oh, you know, we wish we would buy our chips, we would buy our this, that, and the other. They go, we're open.
as part of the National Lottery grant has a number of stipulations and requirements tagged in behind the scenes that obviously people don't see. But one of them is the fact that we do kind of like effectively a survey, putting it politely, to make sure the users are getting the experience they want and anything they'd like extra, what they can add to it and how it's helping the community and how it's helping them with their fitness, mental health or whatever, and teamwork. So we're not starting yet for obvious reasons, but we're going to kind of give it another 2 or 3 weeks, but probably pre the grand opening, which I should have mentioned, which is the 9th of July, between 12 and 4 p.m, which is a party time. We were doing some surveys and asking people their feedback. What do you think of the skate park? What do you think of the surrounding areas? What do you think of this, that, and the other? We kind of between kind of 8 and 10 questions is and another box. And just see what people's feedback is. I think we said we need to bed it in a little bit, let it settle down. It's been a bit crazy the first few weeks. The weather's been truly glorious. It's like properly helped us in one way, but with the dust it's not, but that's fine. I'll take this than not. But yeah, we will get the feedback, and if we can improve things, then we will work with other relevant parties and see, look, this is the feedback, this is the requests. Can we work together on this one, guys? So I'm not saying no to anything, but I'm not saying yes to anything because I need to get the information first. I need to be armed with the relevant facts before I can kind of present an argument. But I do take your point. I've been down there most of the week, most days I go down there, whether it's the first thing in the morning before I go to work or when I come home. I go down and check and have a chat with the parents or the grandparents or the kids who are using it, whatever. And see, what do you think of it, guys, and what would you like? So we're getting the feedback. We are getting it, but once we start kind of collating it into actually a proper fact file as such, we can then start to work with it. So we will work with it. Yeah, I do take your point totally.
Business opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, for both cafes. That's not just the lakeside, but you've got the line at the other end as well. So, yeah.
I think it's worth adding that, as we understand, the concessionaire did try to do evening fish and chips, didn't she, at one point?
Yeah.
Which she gave up because she wasn't getting the custom.
Yeah.
That is,
I guess it's now
it tried,
she has, and she did. And that's what she just said the other week. Yeah. It was actually pre-COVID. Last time it was pre-COVID, because we went down there quite a lot, to be fair, because like they were awesome ships. And there was a young lad who was trying to help the family business, but actually trying to make him go over to himself as well. Now that's why I think he's fair. Credit to the guy, and he's now running the rest of it with his mum. And fair play, but they give it a go. But I think, like I say, it wasn't the people down there. We've now got the people down there, and now got the groups of people down there. So maybe it's an option for them in the future. But again, I think we get the facts first. because we've got to help them to put the business case together. So actually, we're going to open Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights until 9:30 and open the chip shop and Kappa Council Problem, etc. Just not the little ketchup spouts, please. Please do a squirty. Yeah, I'm bored picking 30 or 40 up a day.
And the other thing I wanted to mention was, which committee do I bring highways issues to? Because the just previous council were pursuing things for the Bristol Road residents specifically, and I'm not sure which committee that was.
It was kind of a bit of both, wasn't it? It was this one / the full council, because the cost that was involved was full council authority. So I would probably suggest, write to me, obviously,
Okay.
drop me an email, and then I will come back to you. But I would suggest probably full town council at the end of June, 28th of June, I believe, is the one to bring it back to. I need to find out, because I also, Hurston wasn't heavily involved.
No,
It
Bob
was
Bull
Bob
was,
and
Bob
Paul
was not on
and Bob
council.
Cartwright. Yeah,
No, but yeah, Bob Bull was.
Bob Bull, yeah.
Yeah.
So we will find out. So if you drop me an email,
Okay.
just to kind of, if you drop it over the weekend, you probably won't get a response because of
No,
what's going on
no.
Saturday. But I will respond to you before I head off to France. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm talking far too much. Sorry.
no worries.
Do they need to come here for the microphone?
No, it's fine. It's picking it up. It's fine.
2 points. I'm not sure why there's all of a sudden no parking bollards outside Coffee Number 1. Not sure why. There's 2 car parking spaces there.
Yeah, they've been there all week.
Yeah, they've been there since the coffee shop opened.
Well, they actually went and then come back again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm not sure why we're trying to erase more car parking spaces with the previous council removing the 2 spaces on Coombe Avenue. And the other one, I think it relates to this committee, I'm not 100% sure. But I am surprised, pleasantly surprised at the moment, that there has not been an accident outside the nursery on Coombe Avenue. Because the parents are parking on the double yellow lines, and when you come down Avon Way, the road narrows. So you've got narrowing of that, you've got cars parking on double yellow lines, you've got buses coming up, and you've got kids coming out, and not all kids are well behaved and don't run about, but some do. And I'm concerned about that area as a flashpoint where a child is going to get knocked over.
Yeah.
And there seems to be nobody taking responsibility for that. Now, whether that's theirs or the council warned them,
Yeah.
I've no idea. But I thought I'd bring the subject up because somebody, and it will be a small child, will get hurt or killed.
Take up your
So
first point. Sorry.
Sorry, Ben, go on.
Take up your first point regarding the 2 bays. They were removed because they were causing more of an obstruction than actually helping, particularly when because the buses regulate themselves at the bottom of Coombe
Yeah.
for whatever reason. Therefore, when they regulate themselves, only between 5 and 10 minutes sometimes, having sat on one.
I suggested to the
problem.
first bus, the operations guy who used to come to the meetings.
Yeah.
That the bus that comes down the hill, why not stop 2 stops up for his 5-10 minute break? Because it serves 2 functions. 1, eliminates the congestion on the corner, and 2, it slows the cars down coming down Avon Way.
Yeah.
But the council poo-pooed that idea, and then before I knew it, boom, there was 2 yellow lines.
Yeah. So that was the
That
reason.
would have eradicated
Yeah.
that problem quite easily. It would have served 2 functions instead of 1. You still get congestion there because the buses come at the same time and they queue.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
So
You wait for
we've not resolved any issues. But the other thing with this Coffee Number 1, if you lose those 2 spaces, you've got to remember that next to the shoe shop, you've got them flats. Now, somebody in Infield Wisdom approved planning application with 9 bicycle car parking spaces only. No car parking spaces. And we all know that they're going to be parking in Stoke Road and everywhere else. Common sense is not prevailed.
Yeah, take it up with North Somerset. I mean, obviously, that did go viral before the election, I believe. I'm not saying anything else on it because as a council, if I'm correct, and you're correct because you're on planning, weren't you? We as a council objected to it.
Well,
We
the
were
one
overridden.
next to the shoe shop,
Yeah, we
that
were
was
over
approved by
North Somerset.
the previous incumbent.
Well, it kind of wasn't as it was, but then it came back to us. We objected to it in North Somerset. So I stand to be corrected on this. So if I am saying something incorrect, but I don't believe I am, we objected as a council. North Somerset approved it.
And further
But
to
initially
that,
it was approved by Leslie and Peter
Yeah.
and Paul and
Whoever, yeah.
whoever the Blue Noses were at the time. Very
Yeah.
successful.
further to that, the extra story on top was put to us as a minor material amendment, which we weren't able to say we didn't want. And I've spoken to Mike about it. I'm no longer on the planning committee, but I wrote to North Somerset Council complaining that it's an eyesore. Apart from anything else, it sticks up far too high.
Okay.
On the high street.
Those are the only two issues for this.
Jeff, we've got Laura on, and she's just mentioned that she's got her hand up. There we go. Anyway, Laura, we can, if you can hear us, we can see your messages.
She can't do audio her end.
Yep. Are you able to type your question to us?
Emma's chairing.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, Laura, if you can't hear it, it's Emma here. I think Laura's still with us, isn't she? Okay.
Wanted to ask
We've got an email from her, so I'll forward that email to you, Emma.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Yep.
I don't know if I
Yeah, micro providers disabled.
Laura, we've got your email, so I will forward that to Emma so that we can have a look at that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, we have
With iPads on those things.
Yeah, she's got audio issues. But my role on the well
Yeah,
today.
Laura knows about that, Laura, so she'll speak about that when she gets to the item later. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Okay, any further questions or comments from everybody? No? All right, so on to agenda item number 6, the minutes from the previous meeting. So obviously I wasn't in attendance at the previous meeting, but we just need to confirm the minutes. Has everybody had time to review those that were at it?
I can probably comment. I'm happy as the previous chair that they are accurate and representative of the meeting, so I'm happy to propose the minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
I think who else is here? Well, Janet.
I saw them. And
Yep.
I agree. And we're the only two previous ones there.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thank
Okay. Worries, and you need me to scribble in there,
please.
don't you? There we go.
Lovely. Thank you, Emma.
Worries.
Those are there generally.
Yes.
Do we still
Sorry,
need
yes,
to-
you did.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Carried away.
That's fine. Okay, so all of those, all approve the minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Can we vote if we weren't there?
Yes,
Yes,
can,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that's all of us.
Thank you.
Not voting on the council.
No, I know. Yeah, Laura, we can get there. Okay. Right, so item number 7, so the cost of living fund applications that we've got in. So the first one that we have to cover is the Wellspring Counselling. I don't know if anybody has had a chance to review this one. Yes, Ben?
Yeah, just a comment.
Yep.
It's quite an important one. Has everybody had a chance to review the amended application, which is more than what it says on here? The application now is for £10,000.
So
Or,
because we couldn't get that one, because the agenda had gone out
Yeah.
and we couldn't get the amended bid on the agenda as they'd already been published,
Yeah.
we thought for transparency, we would stick with the bid that they had forwarded, and then in the next community matters, that
Right.
the new bid would be attached, and the second tranche could be the increased amount.
2,630.
Yeah.
So rather than the second one being 3,685, if it's approved
Yeah.
in
Ah,
next
okay.
month, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It would then be like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Because we couldn't attach it in time.
You're the
Yeah.
boss.
Will that take it above the 2,000 threshold, or will that keep it?
It would be
Don't you
below.
different bits of information if it goes above 10,000?
No, it's
Won't be
below.
above.
Yeah.
Well, we're fine, yeah. We got delegated authority up to £10,000 for this committee, so yeah.
Yeah.
So we can go up to, as we were said, 9999.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in essence, the actual request is for a subsidy really for being able to provide an additional 7 hours of one-to-one counselling for adults in Portishead, residents of Portishead, targeted at those that can also afford to pay £5 towards the sessions as well. So yeah, as Laura said, so the thought really is to kind of proceed with what we've got now in terms of the part one that we've got set out. So that was 3,685, and then we can review the updated bid, get that out, and vote again on that in June. Yep.
So my understanding then is the request is £7,370. We split it into two parts. Part one is 3,685.
Correct.
If they adhere to the relevant terms of the grant being approved,
Yeah.
which we'll review in 6 months' time, but ultimately we're going to approve the 7370 as long as they adhere to the terms of the grant being
Yeah.
approved.
Correct.
I mean, I think for me, as I said it in the grants working party as part of that group, to me this is kind of one of those no-brainers as we call it,
Yeah.
because what they do for the residents of Portishead to help them through whatever issue they're going through is invaluable. Having witnessed it firsthand, being invited to one of their meetings, it's really important. And I think if we don't continue to support them, then I think we're letting down the people of Portishead that need the help now. And it's more than ever. You know, yes, inflation's come down this week. Everyone's jumping up and down. It's not exciting at all because actually it's not come down because the price of food's gone up ridiculous again.
Yes, it's
So if we don't help people, then we're letting them down, and I can't live myself with that. So for me personally, I'm happy to propose it, that the fact that we award 1% and then the second part in 6 months' time, it's a complete no-brainer.
Yeah. Do we have a second on that? Oh, bear with me, sorry.
Question why you're discussing it when Ben mentioned at the beginning that it shouldn't be on the agenda because you haven't had the relevant information back.
That's
That's a different
the
one.
youth
Next one.
centre.
It's a different one. isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
this is the youth centre. Yeah, this is specifically Wellspring Counselling that we're talking about here.
No apologies.
All right,
I wasn't going to second it, but I will, because I agree with Ben. I think these
Yeah.
sorts of initiatives are absolutely great and important. It's just a question about the evaluation and what we ask for in the evaluation. In terms of, good to see the sort of uptick in Portishead residency against the backdrop of what they normally see, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
And whether they do any evaluation in terms of outcomes for the people seen in the same way as IAP services do.
They do, and they have provided some information which we can share
Yeah.
with you. So we did ask
Yeah.
for that last week, which we have got. This is, to be very clear, this is for Portishead residents only.
Only,
This
yeah.
is not helping Wellspring to provide service across North Somerset. This is
Just
for
Portishead
Portishead
residents.
residents. We're very clear on it, and it's not the first time we've been very clear on it, because we had a couple of grants in last year before the cost of living fund came in, and we refused to award it until we got the information we actually wanted. I think for one of them went back and forth for nearly 3 months. We finally got the figures, so yeah, the information is there, so we can share it.
so just to,
Just about outcomes,
Mm.
HQ9, HAD7, some kind of standard outcome that the kind of NHS services provide. Great to see it. I'm sure they do it.
Mm.
I'm not sure it's in their evaluation, but
so the second part of the award was specifically going to be made following submission of the report demonstrating benefit to residents of Portishead and the relationship between that and the cost of living support that they'll be receiving. So
And the element
Yeah.
outcomes, isn't it, as well? So have they been successful? Are they still going through the process? And that's which, so like David said, it's the facts and figures, isn't it?
Yeah.
Backing
Yeah, it's the
up what
data
they're asking
backing it
for. Yeah. So
Yeah.
'cause it's a lot of money. but actually it's worthy money, and that's the whole point behind the cost of living fund, which is why it came about.
And it's a great idea. I'm not being critical at all.
Yeah.
And that was the cost of living working party's decision to split do it into instalments to make sure that that reporting is coming back and presented to council before the second instalment's released.
Yep.
So all that evidence base will be there.
So I think we have a
Transparency, that's all it was. We wanted to make sure that if we're going to give them another batch of money, then actually we're seeing the facts. And so if you don't get the facts and figures, they don't get it. It's quite simple. But yeah, I'm sure
at least they can start progressing earlier now
Yeah.
with half of it at least to be able to kind of move those on from. Okay, so I think we have a proposer in Ben and a seconder, and everybody all approved. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to need to ask one of our other councillors to take over chair for this one because I'm going to need to withdraw because of my pecuniary interest for the youth club. Is anybody?
I'm happy to, but isn't this the one we're postponing till another time?
Well, this is the bit that I haven't personally seen the additional information. I've just gone to my email, I can't find it.
So Kim did respond
Yeah.
with an evidence base. I'm certain I sent that out. I haven't got my laptop.
I'm not saying you
with
haven't.
me. Yeah, no,
I just had to- I made
I
to be
can't
honest.
prove it.
Yeah, this past week's been a
It's
bit mad
been
for me,
really
but
busy.
yeah. Can I just,
Wendy's just asked just to make sure that I'm completely out of any of the discussion. So.
So there were the
I'll
two.
call you. Wendy, I'll call you.
just, I mean, one question from me on this, just to be very clear from the outset, I'm not against this because it's helping people at Portishead. What I am against, vehemently against, is the fact that we, on the original grant request, it was £2,970 worth of staff costs. That, to me, is not acceptable and is absolutely not palatable, considering we give them £35,000 a year to make sure that we pay for their staff costs. So you can obviously answer this. My personal opinion is we probably should defer this item, but just to be very clear, if the staff costs are still there, no, from me, this is not what the cost of living fund is about. We're not paying for staff, we're paying for people to benefit.
But if it's,
How do they benefit if the staff aren't there?
Because we're paying them £35,000 a year in an SLA to pay for their staffing costs, not an additional. When you break this grant down in its bare terms as it is now, £5,940. There was 2,000, I think it's 2,970 with staffing costs, around about £1,200 for the breakfast club, and then another cost for room hire. The room hire I'll swallow, okay, but I will not swallow, and I cannot swallow, because it's not what the cost of living fund is about, to pay for staff. Because actually, we're giving them nearly all bar £60, we're going to give them £6,000 potentially if we agree tonight, but half of that is paying for staff. Can anyone here genuinely tell me where that's benefiting the residents of Portishead? It's not. I'm sorry, but it's not. And I can't sit here and even begin to justify it. I can't. It's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong, and it's not what this fund is about. Sorry, but it's not.
Janet?
This is a bit of an interesting one for me because in fact the Wellspring grant, which you were happy to support, is almost entirely the cost of staff, and we already give them money to help them with staffing costs as well.
We don't give them £35,000 a year, Jennifer, for staffing costs, etc. There's a very big difference, and they are benefiting the residents as well. But you are getting well over 3/4 of this grant is going towards room hire and staffing costs. That's my point.
So they can't run a breakfast club without qualified staff.
I accept that, but they need to find a solution,
So,
in my opinion. I bear in mind here, I'm part of a committee, there's only me that's saying this.
yeah,
So if I'm outvoted, that's democracy for you,
you're saying,
but I don't agree with it.
but you're saying it quite loudly and not getting credit.
I
So
am.
the response
Yeah,
is the breakfast club is quite a specialist provision. It's got a very strong cost of living focus. And if it's not staffed by professionally qualified people, they won't be able to run that breakfast club.
I
So
accept that.
the
and I'm not-
breakfast element of it is quite minimal. What's quite essential to that provision is the qualifications of the staff that are running it to recognise and provide for mental health support, cost of living support and signposting. So if the staff aren't employed in that club, then the breakfast club it's a bagel. That's not really going to support the resident supporters.
No, I accept that, and I take your point, and I'm not disagreeing with you to a point, but where I am disagreeing is only £1,200 of this grant is going towards actually feeding these people that need the help. And I accept you need qualified, trained people, DBS checks, relevant mental health awareness, etc. I get it totally, 100%.
20%.
What I don't agree with, and I think this is where the youth centre, I'm not naming individuals, that's not the right thing to do. The youth centre need to look at this, in my opinion, and come back to us with an alternative plan about how they can mitigate some of this, because we give them £35,000 a year, which is purely towards staffing costs and bits and bobs. It's a massive amount of money we give them every year, and I'm fully behind it, because we give them money that nobody else will give them. But this, I can't. I don't think it matters at the moment in my head what anyone says on this one, because I can't get around it.
How many staff do you think £35,000 a year pays for?
I don't know what the
With
wages are,
living
so I don't
wage.
see it. But that's down to the youth centre to manage. But yeah,
I'm just confused. So is it split between the employees that are there when it's open and then the Breakfast Club are separate employees?
No,
So they're the same employees?
but whilst they're running the breakfast club, they're not available to run other activities, or, you know, it's a dedicated club with 2 members of staff.
So these staff, they're all qualified?
Yeah.
So where does the money that we give them, the 35 grand, they go on them staff, or?
So Ben saying the SLA goes on staffing costs, but the youth centres open 12 hours a day,
Okay.
6 to 7 days a week. I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive service that they operate for the town.
So then that extra grant goes towards the staff that help with the Breakfast Club?
Can I just ask also, my understanding of this grant was that it was for extra provision, and extra provision means extra staff time, and to me that seemed okay. That was my take on it. If you're going to provide an extra service, that needs to be staffed, and so it seemed to be legislated without seeing the rules of the this funding application, unless anyone can correct me, they're against those rules. That was my take on this. But lots of arguments, Janet.
My take on this is that if those staff were available to do a different group, they can charge for that. And that goes towards staffing costs. But this particular group, they don't charge for, because these people are not in a position where they would be able to pay. So if they were doing, say, a creche, they charge £15 or something like that for a session. So it's not somewhere where they can get income in. It's only somewhere where they can't. If they hired themselves out for a different group, they would be able to get income in to help with staffing costs. But with this group, there's no help with staffing costs at all, if that's helpful.
So they're going to have to bring in new staff in to cover this provision.
It'd be the same staff, but just bring them for overtime, I'm assuming. That's going to work, isn't it, effectively?
So it is additional staff costs.
Yeah.
And can I be clear? So Ben, you said you raised a concern and you asked for some feedback from the group. What was the concern and what was the feedback?
It was around, that's the bit I haven't seen, and I apologise genuinely to Laura if I've genuinely missed the email. That is my fault. I hold my hands up because she has asked for it. But the Grants Working Party had concerns around about the size of the grant, not an issue per se, but the issue was around the proportion of where the benefit for the Breakfast Club, the £1,200, I believe it was. Then there was the room hire bit, fine, and then there's the staffing cost, which was just eats everything else. And that I accept you have to pay people. I get that. I'm not that. But my point is, I keep coming back to it, and I'm not going to deviate from it because I think, in my opinion, I'm right. Is we support them massively. And Kim and the team, to be very, very clear, I support everything they want to do. Because without Kim and that team and that youth centre, this town will be a lot poorer. They're an amazing team. But I just can't sit here and stomach this, is what my point is. I'm not saying anymore because I think I've said it, I've talked it to death, but sorry.
But were the Grants Working Party waiting to hear back?
Yes.
And has
no. Well, I haven't.
So my sense is that this a decision on this needs to be postponed until the Grants Working Party has seen agreed it. But two other sets of comments, Janet and Mike.
The previous request for a grant, which was for on exactly the same premise, was agreed, and we have been paying it.
It was significantly lower.
Yes, but it was for significantly less time.
Yes, but
It was just for 3 months, I think, wasn't it? And this is just basically taking it through to the rest of the year. So it's pro rata, it's exactly the same.
Could I just ask who are the actual beneficiaries of the Breakfast Club? What age range are we talking about, and how many days a week is it open?
Want me to answer?
Sure.
yeah.
It's mothers and young children that are referred for specific reasons, and carers from GPs and home, the children's centre.
So people are referred in by midwives, health visitors, GPs, or families that the youth centre work with themselves that are either new to the town and socially isolated, are very low income and can't access other groups, or they're suffering from postnatal depression or other mental health problems. They sometimes have up to 15 families, either parents and or carers, that attend. When available, we send our community signposting lady over, who is also able to signpost to other services that we're familiar with. They offer a provisional breakfast. It's not, very fancy, but it's food, and it creates a social setting, signposting, and a network for those families. That's completely free of charge at the point of access.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's from fairly early in the morning?
It's 9 till 12, I think. The other thing is just so that we can put some more flesh on this particular lot of bones. Last week, either last week or the week before, Natasha Ward, one of the GPs, went in there and was able to help a lot of the parents and carers with childhood issues and issues for themselves, so that she actually was able to talk about conjunctivitis, and then everybody else was able to listen, and hopefully it will mean one of the major things, which I think is probably what we're really trying to do with the Wellbeing Project, is to maybe stop those people needing to go to the GP and using up time because they already know the answer. So it wasn't just one individual person that was helped, it was 15 people that were helped with issues about conjunctivitis for the future. And they now know what to do.
Means that they'll have to stop the Breakfast Club until it's approved. That's the only thing. And so the families that are attending at the moment would have to stop until, because that's the major fact. So it's,
So this, I'm slightly confused by some of this. The agenda paper said that this had been approved by the Grants Working Party, but we hear that it hadn't been approved.
I think the majority approved it. There was one voice that had questions that needed further clarification.
And the consequence of not approving the grant now and postponing it for another month would be
cessation of service,
which I think would be disappointing.
It's devastating, actually, for those particular parents and carers.
Okay, so I think we've heard concerns about.
I can't get my head around that. I'm going to use 6, 7 packs, 20% of food, don't worry about the rest. It's going to be eaten up somewhere else. Breakfast Club is for breakfast, it's food supply. And you're only going to spend £2,000 or £6,000 on it.
I don't think their primary focus is food. It's not a food bank service.
You supply the breakfast, basically. So yes.
There is breakfast provided, yeah.
It's called Breakfast Club, though, isn't it?
Yes.
You take the name out of it. Like say, let's call it Music Festival or Summer Fete. Totally different meanings. They're calling it Breakfast Club
because they provide breakfast.
Okay, it's back to my point, I think Jeff's point. So the papers aren't even attached to the back of the thing. Look guys, you do what you ultimately I am one person in this committee. There's another 3 people here. As it stands, I'll probably be outvoted. Fine, it's democracy for you. I'll suck it up. Ultimately, I don't want people to suffer. I don't want people to suffer. But is this really right to give £3,000 just for staff costs? I think the youth centre need to meet us in the middle here. There has to be some middle ground to this. There has to be some fairness to this. And I go back to my point. We give them £35,000 a year. It's a little bit of give and take. It's not just take. We did this fund. I came up with this fund in November and January this year for the deliberate reason to help people. This does not help people by paying staff costs. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. It's wrong. That's my point. If you're going to help people, then help them and make sure they get the help with the food they need, the help they support. Don't pay £3,000 for staff for a year. It's wrong, and they need to meet us in the middle. It's just winding me up here.
May I make a proposal that we agree to the part 1 of the grant tonight, so that they can continue the service and then have and then take part in bigger discussions with the youth club and the providers of this service at a later stage, because we don't want the service to cease, because it is very important. I would say it's one of the most important things we do.
Would there be potential to change the name maybe or add on to the name from just Breakfast Club? Maybe?
I think this is the issue here by just calling it Breakfast Club. There's no stigma attached.
Okay. Yeah, but
if we call it something a little bit more, let's say, a bit more defining what the issues are around the reason for the group itself, it might mean that it's very hard for people to go because they don't.
They have to diarise it because the room's not available, so they have to diarise it at the youth centre. So I think it's deliberately, as Janet's saying, it's quite vague. So as not to stigmatise. And the running costs of the youth centre on an annual basis are like £300,000 to £400,000. So whilst they have an SLA, I don't, it's not covering their staffing costs in entirety.
Okay, so lots of arguments. It's a very, I'm not going to full committee here. My sense is that this needs to go back to the grants committee. I think it would also be disappointing to stop funding it in the next, as of now. So Janet's idea of perhaps giving it funding for 2 or 3 months seems to be a good one. If that's something we could vote on, perhaps,
yes,
to give them.
If Janet's proposal has a seconder, yes.
Take it back to the next committee and address Ben's concerns.
And I think that Ben's concerns must be addressed. I think that that's something which we really do need maybe to sit down with. But we can't stop this service now because it's too important, but it gives us time. So
we agree 2 or 3 months funding for now. It goes back to the grants committee. Who's going to take forward the discussion with the youth centre team about staffing and Ben's concern?
Well, that'll be Janet, me, Wendy, Paul Churchill, and obviously assisted by Laura, because Laura then does the work that we kind of ask, which is appreciated. Thank you. I'm not having a go here. I know you probably feel out, but I'm genuinely not. I am supportive of this, but I can't. This one,
So is that compromise acceptable for now? Because I think it would be a shame to just curtail the service, which is what it sounds like would happen if we didn't agree the funding right now. So is that a reasonable compromise for people to vote on?
I would feel happy with that. How about you?
Yeah.
So would someone like to?
Can I make a proposal that we do part 1 of the grant for the moment in order to continue the service
for 3 months.
For 3 months, and then during that time we meet with the youth centre.
It's 6 months.
It's 6 months. It'll cover it for
continuation.
But I was suggesting we reduce that time, given your concerns, Ben.
We can't change the numbers now.
But you can review it in 3 months.
We can review it within 3 months, yes.
it goes ahead.
Okay.
I think I'm
So
happy
would
with
you-
that, yeah.
So we've got a proposer and a seconder. Shall we vote?
Don't worry, don't worry. We've got
Unless
time
you
to
feel
think
sick
about
while
it.
I'm helping them.
No, you're fine.
Are you abstaining, Ben?
I have to abstain. I'm not going against it. I'm not voting against it. I'm not, but I have to abstain. Sorry.
You're quite right.
It's
We
a
need to
very,
have
it's a very difficult discussion because I think it's
Yeah.
all agreed that you're going to provide a fantastic service,
Thank you.
but you've raised some valid points.
Thank you, Jen.
Cheers, Chair.
Bye.
You may enter the pleasure zone.
Oh,
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, you're back in.
Oh, back. You're out there a while ago.
I know. There's no blood on the table, so we've obviously got somewhere.
Really?
Catch the car on the house next door.
Okay. Is there anything else I need to do to conclude that
No,
item
we're
agenda?
all
All
good,
done?
Emma. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so we are on to agenda item 8, which is the carbon reduction plan repair cafe. So with this item itself, there's a lot of sort of working parts to this at the moment. So our proposal for this particular agenda item is to defer for this month, certainly. We are awaiting a report from Lynn in June, and that's going to be following a meeting that the Portishead Repair Cafe is having with the Clevedon Repair Cafe, talking about sort of potentially, not necessarily amalgamating, but obviously just getting together with a bit more of a framework in terms of what they're doing. So we did have on the agenda, as it was, just the cost for the insurance that we're looking for. That was £147.08. But given now what they're currently doing and the kind of state of flux that it's in, we're suggesting at the moment we defer this until we've got that fuller report from Lynn. We understand exactly what they want to do, and then we can move on and support them as we need to.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree. Can I just ask one very quick question? I think I know the answer to this anyway. I'm assuming it's still the insurance that's the sticking point, isn't it?
It
For
is.
some really strange reason about
yes.
the pill and Yatton are doing one.
Yeah, they think they may have come up with a solution which
Okay.
won't involve us, but will need a
All
bit
parties.
more. Yeah, exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think we also kind of need to note that, you know, the people that work behind the scenes on this, Lynn particularly, done a lot of work on this,
She
and also Sue. I know she's not here now, so it's town councillor, but they've worked very hard on it, so I think it needs to be noted in the minutes that they have worked very hard to try and find a solution to this because of insurance. But
Yes.
Yeah, and location and everything else
it's been
that
proven hard work.
that goes along with that one. So yeah, it's a recommendation to defer.
Yeah, there's sorry, Emma, I've
Yeah,
just
go on.
noticed in the report that Lynn's talking about another couple of options that could be investigated. So if we defer the repair cafe part to allow Lynn to come back with a further report on that, but she's suggested a couple of things that could be done again without any cost to the town council as such. She's suggesting that we could hold a small event in the folk hall to provide information about what people can do to reduce their own carbon footprint. And it would be nil costs apart from our officers' time. We've already got lots and lots of contacts that we could engage for this. Similar to the events that we've had for wellbeing and that sort of thing, but more on the carbon reduction side of it. And the other one that she's suggesting here is the investigation of looking at empty spaces in the high street, empty shops, which could be a home for a sustainable shopping experience. There's one that has just started in Bristol, and she went on a fact-finding course and had a trip over there and said it was absolutely amazing what they've done over there, and we could perhaps look at doing something on a smaller scale here in Portishead, and again bringing a bit of life back into the town centre.
Is that-
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that report in June going to include a
Yeah,
summary of the
I'll-
Bristol?
Yeah,
trip
I'll
as
get her
well?
to update on the
Yeah.
Bristol one if people are happy for her to go and do that.
So, I think,
Yeah,
it's helping people, isn't it? Fix things and make sure we recycle things and not dumping it into the
Exactly.
land to kill us all in 20 years' time as such.
Yeah.
I know a bit dramatic, but you know.
You are, dear, don't you?
But my only kind of concern is the fact that obviously Bristol is cheaper rates. We are like, I mean,
Yeah.
look at HSBC or McColl's and it's a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
So is there any kind of legal way we follow the rules to get some significant reduction on the rate? Because actually if we get, say, for example, HSBC reopen at the end of the summer, or McColl's and Post Office,
Yeah.
and have it as not just a repair cafe / clothes swap, but actually potentially have it as a post office as well, is there options that we can explore to look at the bigger picture here
yeah.
to get the high street bubbling along again quite nicely? Because
Well, interestingly, we've been talking to the guys over in Bristol, and we haven't had final confirmation of it yet, hence it's not in here. But apparently the people who own the site where the Bristol one is, they have an obligation under their tenancy to allow it to be used for community use should they not be using it. It could be that we have a similar situation here in Portishead, but we've got to investigate that. So that could be a way in.
yeah, it'd be quite cool if we could. Really good.
Yeah, similar to the one in Weston, it's
Exactly.
a car park and it's the same thing, it's vacant. So
Yeah.
it's free to use because it's
They're
vacant.
not paying taxes on it, they're not paying it, etc. That's why they put pallets in buildings, because it saves them a fortune for a period of time.
Yeah.
How, I don't know.
Can I just say something about the first option? Or ask a question about the first, holding the wellbeing event in,
In the folk hall.
repair cafe in the
Yep.
folk hall. About reducing the carbon footprint, is that the best place to hold it, do you think? I'm just thinking about Laura's got any advice based on her experience of the wellbeing event a couple of weeks ago.
On the folk halls, the whole downstairs, you're thinking of Somerset Hall.
Yeah. Do you think having an event, a big event here, would get good footfall?
I think a repair cafe is.
Well, this isn't for a repair cafe. This is to actually have an event around how people can reduce their own carbon footprint, and I think it would all depend upon our communications and our media that we can get out. The reason we're suggesting the folk hall is because it's nil cost.
Yeah.
As a start-up, as to try and get the idea going, trying to keep the costs down as much as possible.
Worried about winter and things like that in the folk hall.
No, that was in the Somerset.
It's just such a long way from the high street. I just worry whether you're going to get the footfall.
Again, I think
That's why
it
we changed
it
the
hinges
name.
on our media and our communications that we can get out.
Well, actually, I'm about to get in contact with someone over this weekend from somebody who works in the event world and knows how to push buttons and get people involved. So the minute I get her details, I'll share them with you, because apparently this woman's amazing. I need to talk to her about something for this year, by the sounds of it. So yeah, one question I do have, spinning off the back of this question, obviously, as you said, if it was coming to the folk hall on Saturday afternoon, it's nil cost because there isn't any there. You know what's coming, Wendy. Why is another group that's run by an officer been asked to pay rent? As in which was raised last month as well, the Tea and Tech.
In genuine answer to that, I have no idea, Ben.
Unless I
They
completely
shouldn't be
misunderstood what was
being
said,
charged.
my understanding was there was a fee for hall hire to pay. Can we just clarify that? If
Yeah,
I'm wrong, then I
absolutely.
apologise, but
Yeah.
my understanding was last time there's a fee. And it wasn't the first time that something like this
I
happened.
will check that, but there should be no fee.
Just for clarification, I think.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Wendy, that I was under the impression that and I think I mentioned this at the time, I was under the impression that even if officers and councillors ran a council centred event by us, we would still have to pay. But I was told that it wasn't the case, but I thought that was the case for a long time.
I think just probably clarification.
Yeah.
more than
I think
anything.
people need to be informed informed that you
Okay.
don't want to run something.
Yeah.
Should we have a chat outside of
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
and
That would be the best.
yeah. Because
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned, if it's our event, we shouldn't be paying for it.
So do we need to propose and
Yes, a seconder
for-
for the options. Yes, please.
Okay, no worries. So the further options then that are noted in the Repair Cafe. So the first one being the event, wherever it will end up being held. For the reduction in carbon, the reduction in individuals' carbon footprint. So if we've got a
Happy to propose it.
Yeah.
Yes, aye.
we're going to vote on that one separately. Yeah. Everybody in favour of that one? Yeah.
Brilliant,
Okay.
thank you.
And then the second one, which sounds like it's got a good pair of legs on this one, really, doesn't it? So the second one being the consideration of investigating the use of empty space in the high street. So yeah, thank
He's
you.
happy to second it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
valid idea and we should
Yeah.
do it.
Brilliant.
Definitely. And is everybody? Yep.
Lovely. That's great.
Good. Okay, and then obviously the follow-up in June with the review of the feedback from the subsequent meetings that they're having with Clevedon to be able to move that on.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, that's number 8. So now we've got Laura with us. We're going to have an update from 2 updates really. One regarding North Somerset as an area and all of the different wellbeing activity that's being performed there, and then straight on to your own wellbeing update for here, I guess. Yeah. Over to you.
Have you all read the report? You don't want to read the report, do you? You read it?
Grateful.
So the reason that we included this report, this was actually generated by Emma Simmons, who's partner on policies over in North Somerset, was to give a bit of background to the wellbeing coordinator roles. So that's myself in Portishead and then my equivalents over in Western Supermare and also Nailsea. And the fact there's a MOU out for the one in Clevedon, just to have a bit of transparency and a greater understanding for what my role is and why they've been involved really. So it does outline that there is a network of us and we do meet independently. So whilst we're all based within the parishes, we also have an increasing sort of relationship with each other in order to try and strengthen the collaboration between parishes within North Somerset. So a large part of the wellbeing coordinator's role is representing those towns and parishes in groups such as North Somerset Together and the Wellbeing Collective. And so it's just that's quite an important aspect of it in order to shed a light, for example, on Portishead. Particularly I feel for Portishead because we're north of the border. We lack some of the investment that the bigger town, e.g. Western Supermare, get. There are also some quite big initiatives that are coming through that the placement of those coordinators is sort of put into support, such as the virtual hub and the North Somerset directory. The virtual hub has been launched. There's been a soft launch and Harbourside is part of that, which is a service that uses the social prescribers can call in, GPs can call in, and it's a signposting service for other, like a triage service, if you like, really. And we're there to bridge that relationship, really, so between the social prescribers, the VCSEs that might be providing those services, and do a bit of an asset mapping exercise for it.
Laura, could you used an acronym.
Which one?
BS, and also people don't necessarily know what a social prescriber is.
Okay.
So I think you need to.
So social prescribers or link workers, in Portishead, they're generally through Curo, Community Connect and Alliance Homes. They're based out of the GP surgeries. GPs will often refer to them, or people will self-refer. And they can be anything from a befriending service or signpost to other support services. So they might signpost someone to a knit and natter if someone's socially isolated, so that they're not having to stress the statutory services and GP services. Or it might be, an example Natasha Ward had was that somebody might visit the GP surgery 3 times because they've got reflux, but it's because they're not eating properly. So that link worker would signpost towards dietary advice or take them to a cooking group or whatever it might be. And then they're not having to keep going back for these visits to GP surgeries where, you know, we are several GPs short. So all those wellbeing coordinators have been in place, apart from Clevedon, for different periods of time. Amy over at Weston has been in post for a year now. Then there was Jess, and then I was recruited, and we've all sort of rolled our roles out slightly differently. So I think that was quite interesting in Emma's report, what we've all done with that role, because it shows what the breadth of the roles are and the potential, I think. So Amy works quite closely over in Weston with the sustainability officer. She got quite a large grant for a new green space, and so as part of that, they've rolled out and had quite a lot of funding to do wellbeing, yoga in the park, mindfulness in green spaces, and she's been managing that project quite closely. And she splits her time with the Healthy Living Centre. So obviously Weston has bigger pockets of deprivation, and they have the Bourneville estate. So she goes for 2 days a week and works in that estate. So working quite closely with link workers and things like that. Jess over in Nailsea is able to work straight out of number 65. So with us, Janet will be able to tell you quite a lot of information about CRF and how we develop community hubs. In Nailsea, they already have a community hub, and so Jess is based in that community hub, so she can bring a lot of groups in. There's no cost, or they can subsidise the cost to bring groups in and offer outreach services. In Portishead, I've tried to develop that, and we have got the Department of Work and Pensions that are based out of the library. We have the wellbeing then based out of the community spaces. So part of that effort is to really strengthen the community spaces that we have in Portishead, because we don't have one centralised council run hub. So part of the role as I see it was to really strengthen that network and get greater collaboration. So the Spring into Wellbeing Day that we ran this month was part of that, where it was run across multi-centres to sort of showcase to Portishead that if you want signposting and access to wellbeing services, there are a number of places where you can go that are working together. Would you
like to mention the names of the places we're using as our hubs?
Yeah, so the hubs are the youth centre, very centralised community space that support all the way from prenatal through to senior citizens. Then there's the Beacon Hub in the Methodist Church, where they have a community chat cafe and hire rooms out and have a lot of mental health support services operating out of there. And we do have the town council run services such as the Folk Hall, Redcliffe Bay, and is it Western Hall? Northwestern Hall. Then also the Poacher Pub across the road are a big community space, because where some people might find accessing the Beacon Hub because it's in a church prohibitive, they'll be much more comfortable going into a pub. So, and also the library is the fifth one really. So we meet every second month, we signpost towards one another, to each other, find out what's going on, and we are working on how we can strengthen that signposting and have a collaborative calendar of events that happens. Also joint bids for additional funding. They haven't been successful so far, but we'll work on that. And then for Jai is slightly different because she's funded differently, but there is also Jai Logan who works with the minibus services, but she's much more rural. She does quite a lot of asset mapping. It's a slightly smaller role. She produces, sort of paper leaflets in order to signpost to those residents what services are around. I I think it's the beginning really of those wellbeing coordinators roles now that the North Somerset Directory is in its infancy and the virtual hub has launched. I think there will be a lot more integration with the roles. I attended quite a few focus groups recently hosted by VANS.
VANS is
Voluntary Action North Somerset. And also Citizen Advice North Somerset, because they do have a funding stream that is not arrived through North Somerset yet, but is imminent, and they are looking for ways to distribute that is different to traditional bids, because they recognise that not all the services that are delivering locally have bid writers or have that experience, and then sort of bigger operations may come in just to grab the funding without actually having the sort of grassroots experience of how to deliver to residents. So it's an important conversation, and I recognise the importance of being on those groups representing Portishead to shine a light on us. So I think we do lack investment, because a lot of the councillors are based in Weston, that's their experience and that's what they know. So for them to realise that our BCSEs don't have the backing of corporations, are voluntary, social enterprises, faith-based groups that are frontlining with our residents. They don't have resilience training, they don't have mental health training. So this is an area that has been recognised, and North Somerset are now starting to offer free training. Sorry if that was a question. Offer free training to those services, because they're frontlining where statutory services are stressed. So that's the wellbeing coordinators.
I got a question with Monica first.
I'm surprised you didn't mention in your list of organisations locally involved the Children's Centre up on St Barnabas.
because they're a service provider.
They're statutory.
Right. Can you explain to me the difference?
So yes. So they do get funding, whereas a lot of the BCSE, the voluntary sector, charitable organisations, they have a different funding stream. They have to apply for bids and things like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas St Barnabas is very valuable, and they are on our Portishead Wellbeing Partnership, and they definitely have a seat at the table. Mm-hmm. But because they get funding through government, they've got Okay. And they have so they have midwives and they have social workers, and they already have a trained body of staff there. Whereas a lot of the sectors that are supporting residents in Portishead are voluntary, so they're not paid. They don't necessarily get training for their own resilience, let alone recognising the increasing mental health aspects that they're being met with because of cost of living or other concerns that are coming up.
Can I add there, for example, the poacher lady, Sarah, said that she thought as a publican she'd just be pulling pints, but she signed up for a cruise course to help people, bereavement course, because she has people coming in drowning their sorrows. Oh, yeah. And she finds that her work is much more mental health based than she ever thought it would be, but she has no training for it. So she has signed up for a cruise course, and she's also looking to sign up with Curo for making every contact count course, which again is a free course, so that people learn how to listen to other people and the right questions to ask to get the right sort of response from the client, not the client, the person who's in distress, to help them. And that's the sort of courses we're providing.
And also I think having those wider conversations, I have, as a result of that, had conversations with bands, where Voluntary Action North Somerset, where they would now like to do more outreach in Portishead because they're very much Western based. So that's a meeting that I will follow up with them. And also Citizens Advice North Somerset, who currently only do an outreach every Friday, have mentioned off record that they are now looking for a secondary base, and that would be north of North Somerset. So I'm definitely pioneering Portishead as being a very viable option for that. So I think it will only strengthen the support that we get, and also the funding streams that come via the local authority into the parishes and towns, most importantly Portishead, with that filter on.
So a question on that, sorry, Jen, quick question on that. Is it, have we not shouted loud enough to get some of the funding, or do we need to shout a bit louder, but delicately, but make sure that our district councillors fight for the funding as well? Do we need more help from the district councillors? Is that where we're going with this?
Yes.
Okay.
For example, buses.
Yeah.
They hadn't considered that our residents get referred into Southmead, and the zonings don't include Southmead.
Right.
So that wasn't on their radar, because if you look at all their zones, they stop as soon as you get to Avonmouth.
Yeah.
But we don't get
And that's
referred to
on
Weston-super-Mare.
No.
So our residents have to go all the way into Bristol to make a hospital appointment into Southmead. That's an hour and 20 minutes. That wasn't on their radar. They also wasn't on their radar that having been discharged from Southmead, we're then coming into a different local authority, that discharge assessment, and in community care, people are falling through the net. So because these conversations aren't happening, they're just not aware of it. So it is being overlooked. So I am quite boring in these meetings because I do consistently advocate for Portishead and put my hand up and say, you are aware that North Somerset is broader than Weston-super-Mare. My residents are in Portishead, you need to consider them.
Well, we're the second biggest town in North Somerset, and we're not getting our fair share, and
That's
that's the
my
problem.
point.
This is the whole point. North Somerset don't seem to want to listen or won't listen. I think my opinion is won't. I said I'll give them 6 months. They've got it, the time's ticking. But I think my point is we need to make sure the district councillors are aware, we need to get them on side, particularly Roger, he's on the executive.
Yeah.
It's his job to do it. You've got Nicola, Tim as well, make sure, and Tim will be behind you everywhere, and so will Nicola. I think we need to shout louder.
I'm sure Roger will be.
Some of the figures, I kind of dispute whether they know about it, because I think they've either had their eyes wide shut in the past 2 years and their ear defenders on, which literally dulled out every noise, because we've been moaning about the bus services and people having to go to these places. And, you know, ex-town councillors now, Bob Ball, for example, has been leading the charge on the buses with Heather and Bob Cartwright, etc., saying that when we get referred to the eye clinic at Cribs Causeway, yet they take out the bus, yet apparently they haven't got the figures. I'm not going to say the word, but it's not quite the truth in my opinion, because they have got the figures, and the argument is there that the minute you take out a bus service to a certain area where people have to get referred to, well, how are they going to get there? Because some of these people don't drive.
Yeah.
And
You can't after you've had something,
well,
an injection
you're
in
not
your
allowed
eye.
to. You'll be picked up. So their argument to say to you and others that they haven't got the figures isn't quite true. And I think we've got enough evidence over the past 2 or so years to back it up that it's not quite so true. So I think if we work with you closer and make sure the district councils work closer with you, I think we could put a strong argument together quite quickly to make sure, justification, that we get funding quicker than what we're getting it.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable, again, one second, that we are the second biggest town in North Somerset and we're always bottom of this food chain.
Yeah,
It's not
no,
about
I'm-
shouting louder,
I'm in
it's
agreement.
about making sure that we are at the front of this
Constantly
queue,
chipping
we're
away,
there,
chipping
just
away.
constantly on their shoulder, making sure we're not going away. And they'll realise that I'm not going away.
But Laura has applied for funding for grants on how many times? Have you 3 times?
3 or 4 now.
3 or 4 times, and she hasn't got 1 single penny out of
Well,
North Somerset
However,
Council.
I also do think, I have reflected on that there is a lot of health and wellbeing funding that's coming through, and the grants I applied for were very specifically health and wellbeing and resilience training, and I think actually that probably they already had plans afoot to provide that through the local authority. So I'm being gracious here that I think some of those grants got rejected because they already had plans to provide that training. Because I have had 2 emails with 6 free trainings through in the last 2 weeks,
Brilliant.
which I'm forwarding out to the Wellbeing Partnership.
Good. Because I know that
And with that Wellbeing Partnership, because I sit on the Wellbeing Collective and because I sit on North Somerset together, we are getting people from North Somerset now coming to that meeting, which you've seen. You know, we've had the CEO of the Citizens Advice Bureau come to a meeting.
and the vans.
And we've had the CEO of Vans come to a meeting. And so I don't think they were really aware of the services and the activity that was going on in Portishead and where the needs were. But by being in their meetings and, you know, repeating the invitations to ours, they're beginning to have that footing and that understanding of our
Are you going
residents'
to now,
requirements.
Luke, moving on to your role within Portishead, are you going to explain our wellbeing meetings?
Yes. So,
I just think one thing very quickly. I think the cans bit, Yeah. I
Well, you
mean,
say
we
that,
support, we support them heavily financially every year, and I've sat in several meetings, and they do a fantastic job again. But they
It's
don't
because-
realise the importance. Are we some kind of like? Is there some invisible thing around Portishead that I don't see? That every time I drive out, I go to some hypersonic window and come back in again, just bazoom, I'm back in my home again. No, they have the information. They just choose to ignore us. That's not acceptable, and we will deal with it. But I think we've seen
I
it
think
again.
it
The
is
link.
changing, but the links are, you know, a lot of those same people sit on the ICP, the Integrated Care Partnership, and they sit on the Integrated Care Board. So when I'm in North Somerset meetings with the people that are also in the Integrated Care Board, and they're expanding on what amazing funding they've got for better health, but that's come through the Peer Health Group, which we don't benefit from. What happens if you're north of the border, you know, my little mantra comes up. So then those lights are coming on and they're beginning to realise that North Somerset does have a postcode lottery and that we're not winning the prize draw here.
So win a bigger prize.
So sometimes it's just having that message there in that, you know, in a range of different meetings, and understanding that even though they've got wellbeing coordinators across parishes, the offering has to be very different because we're coming onto different funding streams. We're not Peer Health, we've got Ono Valley, for example. So we don't have Better Health. We can't do weight management and stop smoking because all that funding is in Peer Health Group. We're not having it in Portishead. So it's yeah, sorry.
No, it's right.
How we get it?
Can I just just make one comment? I mean, first of all, as a new councillor, it was fantastic to go to the Spring into Wellbeing event and see all the organisations on offer there. And so thanks for all the great work you're doing. Just one thought. You've obviously got in your head a lot of information about all the different community resources that are out there, the debt advice, the food bank, you know, and so on and so on. Would it be possible, and I guess it's on your agenda, to kind of put that all onto a website somewhere so that when someone searches, you know, sort of food bank, Portishead, they went straight to Portishead Town Council?
There's two things that we do have a portfolio of partners that is being developed, but that is also forming part of the virtual hub in the North Somerset directory, because it's really important that that information isn't just isolated in Portishead, but that it's recognised across the authority of North Somerset. Because an example of that would be, we could have a directory for Portishead of the food bank, but if that's not on a wider directory, then people in North Somerset won't realise that our food bank doesn't have a permanent residence or storage. So and that funding could come centrally. So that asset mapping is an exercise that's taking place.
Yeah.
I think the key thing is that someone types into Google or your search engine
That
of
will be
choice,
the virtual
and
hub.
Portishead and domestic abuse, Portishead, and
so that work is happening centrally, and the wellbeing coordinators, that they're in those parishes doing that asset mapping to feed it into that information.
But this is a conversation that Polly and I started 4 years ago, and we're still not there yet, but we're a lot further on, because it was this. The first thing that Polly and I said is, if you Google walking group in Portishead and you Google it, nothing comes up.
so should we not, as a town council, then accept that North Somerset are doing it and the advantage of doing it, but can't we do something separate anyway?
It's too difficult. We did try, and Bob Bull was working on that with us, but it was almost impossible to do because it's quite a sophisticated thing to do.
But surely, though, we can put the links onto a walking group or help some shops.
This is a huge conversation, and the thing is, St Peter's Church has worked with a group led by Dee, and she and their group got together 60 different organisations, and they've basically given up. They've got 60 different organisations that they wanted to have a website to put them on, but it was before Laura came. This was something we were arguing about within North Somerset and trying to do in Portishead for the last 4 years.
Perhaps it's something that we can.
The challenges are, you've got GDPR, so you can't list those organisations without their permission. They're constantly changing, because the knit and natter might be as important as the Better Health Portishead strollers, for example, but it might change, or the volunteer running it sadly might pass away, or for any number of things. So there's different streams of what you can detail, what you can list, and the permissions that you need to go out and get. This is no point having a list that's out of date, and it could be out of date in 6 weeks. So there are massive challenges. Sirona now do have finances, and they've got contracts in place to create a North Somerset wide directory. The challenge is if we go off too much down the road of doing it independently as Portishead, is that we then don't get on that authority-wide directory.
Yeah, to be able to do.
I think I mean, this has been 4 years of hours and hours and hours of discussion, and you've just said the vital thing, but what you don't realise is what's behind it.
I think it's something that we just keep an eye on and make sure that it is on everybody's radar, to make sure that if there is any improvements that we can do in signposting locally in that sense as well, that it is, but you know, there's massive benefit for keeping on track with the wider picture, though, isn't there?
Do you know we have a signposter in Portishead?
Yes. Yeah.
I think it also comes back down to the fact that point that our district councillors, with all due respect to them, have done a good job in the past 4 years. I think this just proves we have done a good enough job at North Somerset level to make sure we're shouting loud enough and making sure that we're getting our piece of cake, but also the relevant groups or whatever that need help or want to be part of this structure either aren't being listened to, or in some points quite blatantly being ignored. And it goes back to my point about the bus to the Cribs Causeway. I mean, it was very clear what the problem was here. We were ignored and apparently didn't have the data. Well, I've sat in at least 2 meetings with a certain individual from North Somerset, and the data's been given. Apparently he hasn't got it, but maybe he was asleep.
Yeah, and also the Cribs Causeway bus has completely ignored the fact that we also asked that it should go on to Southmead.
Again, that's the point though, isn't it, Janet? It's they say they're listening, or they're not the facts of things, but we know they have. We can counteract it, and it's about how do we fix, and it comes back to one very simple word: communication. How do we fix the communication? I can't even say the word. Issues from the past 4 years that have gone awry somewhere, and how do we get the dots joined up?
But we should be in a better position.
I think we are.
Now,
We got more of which we
forward.
didn't have.
Yeah.
That's better, but I think again we're just joining it. Better, isn't it?
Work in progress.
Yeah.
Jeff's had his
Just 2 quick points. I'm not aware of this well-being stuff until tonight when you're speaking about it, but it's obvious to me Laura here has done a hell of a lot of work, a lot of research, put a lot of time and effort. If you want to minute that, well done, and keep up the good work. You mentioned what's the Town Council website. Now, I've only briefly looked on the mobile here, and there's a graph where you heard about all this, and what's the Town Council line is blank. I'm not sure why nobody's heard of it on the Portishead Town Council website, according to one of your charts, I believe, if I've read the charts correctly. You've heard it from friends and you've heard it from him here, Portishead Council. There's no line, there's no colour line on there, so nobody's heard of it on the Portishead Town Council website. I might be
Do you
wrong.
mean the Spring into Wellbeing?
Yeah.
There's charts on there.
Yeah, I think.
I've only just looked at that while you were talking about it, and I noticed there was one chart that had nothing under the Portishead Town Council.
Yeah, no, to respond to that, our website's literally just been relaunched, and I think when we did the Spring into Wellbeing event, it was
just coincided with the
crossover of the old website sort of being shut off and the new website being opened, just to to minute that.
Yeah, but fine. I just wanted to make it known that I think it's
no.
still in job, and
And I
you
think
should be
that's
recommended for it.
to make it a bit user friendly, so that in future, hopefully, it would drive more traffic.
Laura, can we fetch you to your April update?
Yes. So part of something that I created for my role for transparency, because obviously I do represent Portishead in a lot of these meetings and talk to various bodies, is I create a monthly report so that you guys can see what I'm doing and pick me up on something happy or not happy with, will ask further questions. So I do produce a report every month so that you can see what I'm getting up to, and the meetings that I'm involved with. So I'll just very quickly run through April's report. One of the first things on there is the Portishead Wellbeing Partnership meeting, the PWP. So every quarter I chair a Wellbeing Partnership meeting, which invites those statutory bodies, voluntary organisations, basically any stakeholders that have anything to do with wellbeing within Portishead. We invite them to the table. We've been following North Somerset's thematics of starting well, living well, aging well and dying well, just in order to split that ending well, in order to sort of focus those meetings. We basically try and identify gaps in Portishead where services and needs are not being met, and then discuss how we can meet people at their point of need and fill those gaps, and also support the statutory services, e.g. the GP surgery is being very, very overwhelmed. And they are growing in popularity and success. I think there's some really amazing work that I will try increasingly to capture. For example, Wellspring Counselling now going to Gordano School. The NHS Talking Therapies are starting to do workshops in Gordano's sixth form because of connections that they've made through those meetings. There's a lot of work that's come out of those. So they happen every quarter. Because they are getting quite big, they will now be downstairs in the folk hall because we have outgrown the space.
It's great.
Second step happened in April. They are a community-based workshops. They, I think, used to come to Portishead pre-COVID, and we haven't seen them for several years. So I'm trying
They came
to.
last year in our CRF funding stuff, and they helped a large group of school children in early teenagers with anxiety.
Lovely.
And we had several workshops, and they said they were absolutely invaluable.
So we're trying to bring them back as a regular drop-in provision. Then we had a wellbeing network catch up. I went through a very interesting, I skipped a page. Oh, and then the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Yes, so I have had a meeting with some consultants as to how we can access some of the UK Shared Prosperity funding. There is an outline of what I proposed to them. You can read that and gauge it as you want, but those are some areas that I've identified. I haven't heard back from them yet. They are working with the North Somerset Economy Department, so that's in process.
Is that anything to do with the levelling up fund, or is that totally separate?
With
The levelling up fund, or is it totally separate?
It's part of that, and then it's quite confusing, and I don't really have an overview of it, but yeah, it is.
So the money went obviously to Western, and then Western decided to dump 7 million into Tropicana then, because they decided to. Funnily enough, because it's convenient, isn't it? Funny that. I sound very sceptical about North Somerset then already, but I've got 4 years worth of experience. Yeah, I think it goes back to my point, doesn't it? I am being sarcastic, but there's a very good reason in my opinion.
Well, there's work to be done now.
But there's a lot of work, there's a lot of joining up the dots to be done. And I think personally, I think the executive from North Somerset need to come to Portishead and have a council and resident meeting and actually justify their roles, in my opinion. And just, they're all new now, but if you look at what's happened in the past 24 hours regarding the magic roundabout at Clevedon, well, one arm's saying, yes, it's going to change, and the other arm's saying, well, actually, maybe it's not. There's all sorts being said in the North Somerset meeting, which wasn't particularly pleasant by all accounts. I just think it goes back to the point is there has to be a joint up approach. We are the biggest sister of Western, and we are literally kicked down the gutter, and we've not tolerated it for 4 years. I know some people say we have, we certainly haven't. We've kicked back, but I think we need to kick even harder. And now we've actually got a seat on the executive. That seat needs to be kept for the next 4 years. We can't let it go. It's important we have a seat at the table because we are the biggest or second biggest part of this food chain in North Somerset, and we have to fight hammer and tooth for our residents, and we should and we will. And me being chair for this year, I will
God
make
help
sure that we
us.
do.
Was that
Well,
okay?
yeah, but
No, you're right. That was a
We have to,
flip
though.
remark, and it wasn't.
We don't have a hospital, we don't have a job centre, we don't have.
there's so many things we don't miss out
facility.
on, because
Yeah.
apparently I think there's no problems in Portishead because we're affluent. Well, hold on a minute. Again, goes back to my point a minute ago. This is a magic bubble, because actually there are a lot of problems in Portishead, and we as a council, we've worked very hard for people at Portishead, and we'll continue to do so. But actually, we can't do it all on our own, can we? You're doing a great job. Janet's doing her job, and other people are doing their jobs, Wendy, etc. But if you're not listened to back at head office, as you call it, well, what's the point? And I think we need to understand why we're not being listened to, and understand what bits of the puzzle are we missing here. So what bits do we need to find a piece of the jigsaw to fit it, and then make sure in the next, say, 6 months, we get them answers, and then we can then go on and make sure we've got it and we're being listened to. So actually, we'll then make your job easier, hopefully, because you haven't got to go to a meeting and fight your corner every second of the day. You can actually go to a meeting, have a more productive meeting, and come out of it thinking and feeling better that you've actually achieved something, whereas you're going in there, maybe, correct if I'm wrong, but sometimes head wall brick. And it's like, because you're trying, but it's not always being listened to, is it? I think we need to understand how we do it.
What happens is they look at the statistics of deprivation, and Portishead's very affluent, but they need to appreciate that there are pockets of deprivation within the affluence, and because we have no service provision, because statistically they're affluent, like those pockets of deprivation are really missing out. Whereas when you have bigger cities like Weston-super-Mare, statistically there's more deprivation that they can evidence, so that the services are available. So that's I think maybe a root of the problem. But it's that understanding that then,
Sorry, Jane.
Very, can I just add to the bare bones of what Laura said? We had, for example, the last wellbeing meeting we had, there was a fairly loose agenda to start off with, but then Laura allowed it to go freeform, and you could see people passing notes across and saying, would your walking group be able to come and talk to our seniors, and will so-and-so. And what is happening in those meetings is huge, because it's networking between service providers and volunteers within our town. So thus widening the offering to the residents in our town by far more than you would believe. Because the other thing is, I'm sure, David, you would be able to say this, one of the issues about the event that was last week on the Saturday was that the service providers and volunteers were able to talk to each other and network, and they had serious conversations. And now you see, if somebody presents with several issues, the service provider knows exactly where to send them, where they didn't before, because everyone was operating in a bubble. And that's not happening anymore within Portishead and within Portishead service providers. They know now what's going on and what's available in the town, and that was not the case before. It took us 2 or 3 years to find out what services were operational within Portishead. We knew nothing about Sirona, Curo, and Polly and I spent hours on the phone finding out about all these different things, which we had no clue. Nobody had.
And everything should continue feeding now, shouldn't it? In like a snowball.
It's very different now, but it's taken 4 years to get this momentum going. And we've worked really hard in that 4 hours, 4 years. 4 hours. Oh God, I wish it was only 4 hours. 4 years.
Or is there anything else in your?
No,
you want to go?
That was about me. Any questions?
Yeah, no. Well, not for me. David, if you.
I just have one question. There's an interesting idea here about a purpose-built shared community space.
Yes.
Which includes things like public toilets, post office. What's happening to that?
This building's not entirely fit for purpose. There are challenges, and it would take quite a large amount of money to make it fit for purpose. And our halls manager, plus the health and safety, we'd love a purpose-built building. Then we have issues, for example, the Windham Way toilets. which are our community public accessible toilets have to be closed because they're in an unmanaged building. So that is problematic for people that need to access toilet facilities, whereas if they're in a staffed building, they could be open. In Nailsea, they have a purpose-built wellbeing area because they've got number 65. If you could combine that, we could really do a lot more outreach and have a much wider offering. So it might be pie in the sky, but if you don't ask the questions and you don't have the dream.
It sounds like a full town council meeting issue rather than.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was just a very, I had a meeting with Ray's partnership, who work with the economy department of North Somerset, and they said, if you could ask for anything, what would it be? That was it. So it was quite a big ask, but
But
we tried to, and it may go.
It's an interesting idea, but I think it
is very much just
probably
an
here isn't the
idea.
right place to talk about it. It's probably
No.
something to go to.
But it's something that we've investigated over the last year anyway, with Paul Churchill and Bob Bull and I. We looked at every shop that was available in Portishead to try and think about how we could change it into a community centre. So.
No, thank you. It was really, well, it was definitely informative to me, just starting to learn more and more and more and more, really. So thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. It's helpful. I think we're not being critical of you, to be clear. We're being critical of Western.
Yeah, in the process.
So we need to make sure, and I need to make sure as chair of the council, that we make sure the joint of thinking is there, and our district councils are fighting harder and stronger for us, which I think when I get back from France in a few weeks, 3 weeks now, I think we just need to get together, all of us. And I've got some ideas I want to say to someone else, it's not the right point, but I want to do that. It's important. It's a new batch of councillors mainly, there's only 4 of us originally. So it's really important to, and the staff have to be involved in this. And then we can take it to the residents and see what the residents think as well, because ultimately we're doing it for the residents. It's why we all come to work each morning, why we be a councillor, it's what I do it for, and my other colleagues do as well. So this is about the residents of this town, and we fight for them. And if we have to fight, we will fight. Not literally, because I don't agree with it, but literally we will make sure that we draw the battle lines and we have a constructive conversation. And we'll fight our corner, and if you need to back up, we'll back you.
Yeah.
And that goes for any other officer, we'll back you in North Somerset to the hill, because that's what we have to do. So, yeah.
Okay, so on to agenda item 11, date of next meeting. So we've got that set now, aren't they, for now? Yeah, anyway, but Thursday, 22nd of June at 7:30 p.m.
David was first.
I just want to ask an extra question.
Yeah.
Just which is the appropriate committee for the post office concerns to be talked about? It's so high on so many people's agendas.
This is the one, I think.
And I just wonder whether.
Yeah. This will then default to council, I think. All councillors need to have a conversation on this thing. Obviously, because a lot's happened behind the scenes and a lot is still happening.
Yeah.
I think this one ultimately will probably run it, in my opinion. But I think ultimately it has to come into full council. We need all councillor input on this, because obviously there has been a lot of chit chat behind the scenes, obviously, pre-election.
Discussion item to start with, and
Yeah, probably. I think probably started to community matters in June, and then we can then roll it straight to full council if we need to again the following week. So I just think it's important, because obviously a lot of you won't know what's been discussed. It's not secret, to be clear. Any accusations are level, it's not. It's just the fact that obviously some of you weren't here. Therefore, we need to bring you up to speed. So yeah, I think it's the right thing to do, and then yeah, we'll move from there.
Yeah.
Can I just add 2 things? Obviously, sorry,
I've got
Mike.
another one.
I know, but that's when people apply gas to leave. Obviously, Saturday is the coronation event at the Showfield. Nikki and I have been there. What to say? We're there all day tomorrow from 7:30 in the morning, and we won't finish probably till about 8 o'clock tomorrow night, and then we're back in again at about 7 o'clock Saturday morning until literally we won't get home much before midnight Saturday night. It's going to be a mega event. The first vehicle has landed this afternoon. Looks cool, wicked. The stage is up, the generators are in. security are there guarding by many pounds worth of fuel. My life. So it's going to be awesome. We're doing it. It's a coronation event. Obviously, we had a Jubilee event last year to celebrate.
Use the same flags.
Yeah. Be quiet, please. I've said on that one. To celebrate, obviously, the enormous achievement of the Queen. Sadly, we lost her a few months later. Obviously, this is now to celebrate kind of the King's coronation. But also the driver behind last year and then this year is to help Portishead residents by giving them a fantastic event that's come to effectively is free. It's a penny or a donation, which goes to 4 local charities, which is the Food Bank, the Christmas Lights, the Portishead Girls Football Club. Come on, someone. What's the 4th one? No. There's one more.
Portishead Blue.
It was Portishead in Blue, I think, wasn't it?
No.
Doesn't matter.
There's the one more, and I apologise. No, it wasn't Skate Park, no. Food Bank, Christmas Lights. There is a 4th one, I genuinely apologise, I forgot what it is, my head's gone blank, but it's going to go to 4 fantastic local charities who, need the money. They're all really appreciative. Please do support the event. There's a lot going on, live music, there's children's entertainment, circus classes, all sorts of stuff going on, Bouncy Castle slide, lots of local businesses there, which is the reason why we did it, because they needed the help. And this event they can come to for free. I know they have to buy their stock, but ultimately they've got no license fees to pay, no other stuff to pay. They just rock up and hopefully enjoy the event and make some money, which will help them, which ergonomically grows Portishead businesses, which is what this is all about. I am passionate about it because it was kind of my idea, which I got told last January. I'd never get it off the ground in 3 months. We delivered it. Thank you, Nikki. You're awesome. And obviously, she's helped me this year. There's other people behind the scenes, Wendy particularly this week. Thank you, Wendy. You know why. We've had a battle since Monday. But this is about bringing residents of Portishead together and celebrate what's great about Portishead, all the businesses. And it's a generally community event. There's a bit of music there, there's a bit of circus skills, there's a bit of hula hoop, there's a bit of Bouncy Castle, there's some food, there's some crafters, there's some charities. We've got the rock choir there. This is going to be an amazing day. Please come along and enjoy it. But if I can ask one massive request, and anyone that hears, spread it to their friends and family that's coming. We are very, very limited on car parking. When I say very, I mean very. We've only got half the Gordano school field because they're still at school and we can't go on the track for obvious reasons. We don't want to damage it. They don't want to damage it. So please, if you can walk, please do walk. If you can, it is really appreciated.
Behind the houses on Bristol Road.
Football club.
You turn to, is that where the car boot sales are held? Turn left to the roundabout, and then there's a big fenced area behind the houses.
What do you mean?
Heading towards Clapton and Gordano on the left-hand side.
The extension of Gordano.
That's the extension of Gordano school fields.
Yeah.
That's the whether we can't. Yeah, we can't because football pitches are on it and they're using them still. We can't. Yeah. We have asked, and we politely declined. Compared to Gordano, they've been absolutely fantastic. They've been really helpful, really supportive. So we are looking next year when we do it again. Breathe. I am looking to do it next year. Hopefully, if we get the support of the council to run it again next year. But we'll move it later, very deliberately, to get bigger car parking because we do need it. But majority of people in this town can walk, I believe. But obviously, if you can't, then obviously there is car parking for you. But please do come and enjoy the event. It's going to be absolutely fantastic and well worth it. And obviously, just the other one is obviously just to reiterate, skate park grand launch. It's the 9th of July between midday and 4 p.m. Obviously at the lake grounds. I'm not going to move it between now and then. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, no worries.
Emma?
Yes. So Mike.
I'm planning to do a survey of bus stops around the town with a view of bringing a report to your committee, and I'm hoping that there'll be some approval to spend some money to upgrade them. And does that meet with your approval as a committee?
Yeah, most of them belong to North Somerset Council.
Yeah.
There's that
Yeah, I know
one
they
over
do.
in North Somerset.
Yeah, I appreciate that some of them split between various ownerships, but certainly the ones that are the PTC ones.
I don't think there's any harm in doing the research. Let's do the research first, and then
Yeah.
let's arm ourselves with the information,
Yeah,
and
I
we can have a
some copies
conversation.
and things,
Yeah,
but,
yeah. So, yeah. Why not? Particularly
That'll
the
be
one
a couple of months, hopefully.
particularly the one on Keys Avenue, which has been battered twice.
Okay, that fetches us to agenda item 12, which is the exclusion of the public and press. So specifically, just to read it out in full, we've got under the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, members of the public and press are required to leave the meeting at item 13 due to the items being confidential matters. Confidential matters which come under Data Protection 2018 and GDPR UK 2018.
Are there any?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so-
Rephrase it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
rephrase it.
seconder, Janet,
All those in favour?
was, yeah, okay.